1942, at the age of 4, Ruth had to change her name to Renee for her own safety. She had to pretend to be a Catholic French girl. Renee was a fitting name because it means rebirth.
So the only way that we had a chance of survival is to take on a false identity. I didn't understand. I was too young, but an older cousin told me from now on, you have to change your name.
Ruth's parents were from Germany. In 1939, Benno and Elizabeth Kapp and their daughter Ruth emigrated from Germany to Paris, France. Benno's brother Heinrich and his family also left Germany for France.
In 1940, when Germany invaded France, the Kapps quickly fled to the south of France in the so-called Free Zone run by the Vichy government.
France was at war. France was occupied by the Germans, and the French were collaborating. So it was very, very dangerous to be Jewish. The French had set up 250 camps on their soil. People had to wear a yellow star. The adults had the letter J stamped on their ID, and the police was everywhere arresting people. We lived in Toulouse, which is a large town in southern France. I was there with my parents, and a man who worked at City Hall was able to get my parents' false IDs until one day he came running to our room and said, "There's going to be a big roundup of Jews tomorrow, and you're on the list of people to be arrested. You better run to the station as fast as you can. I think there's only one train leaving tonight because I can't guarantee your safety if you don't do that." My cousin, Jeanette, and her parents lived a couple of blocks away, so my father said, "That's very nice of you to warn us, but I'd like to warn my brother and his family." And the man said, "Let me know where they live, because I think you better run as fast as you can. I can't guarantee that the train will wait for you." My uncle and his family never made it. We found out only after the war was over that he was arrested that day and ended up being killed in Auschwitz, the infamous death camp in Poland. His wife was arrested later on, and she also died. She actually died after being liberated, and she had contracted typhus and died on the train on the way home. So my cousin Jeanette was left an orphan, and some of her classmates took her in, but we didn't know that until the war was over. There were thousands of people on that train. It stopped in the middle of nowhere. It's a very rural part of France, and we were directed to a farm, and there the farmer said, "There's a village nearby, and by the name of Arthez," and that's where we went. And we were given a room, and the people who lived above us were the Feydeau family. By then my parents had no money left. They couldn't even buy any food. They depended on other people for that. And the Feydeau family had 2 daughters. They were very nice to us. And finally my father started to trust them because Monsieur Feydeau said that he was in the resistance. And then Monsieur Feydeau asked my father, "Are you Jewish by any chance?" And my father said yes, and we're in very grave danger. So he said, the room that you're occupying now was occupied by a Jewish family, and one day a truck pulled over and hauled them away, and we never saw them again. So we promised ourselves, if ever there would be another Jewish family in that room, we would do everything in our power to protect them.
Another Jewish family lived up here before. In the middle of the night, they were dragged from their door. There was nothing I could do to save them, and I swore I would never stand aside and let that happen again.
There was a one-room schoolhouse in the village, meaning first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and one teacher. And on those days when it was safe, there weren't many, I would go to that school. On my right was a second grader who was very nice. She shared her sandwich with me and said, "You seem to be hungry. I know a lady at the edge of a village who has a vegetable garden, so maybe she can give you some food." So one day, without warning my mother, because I couldn't, I ran to this lady. Her name was Madame Vala. And Lucette, the daughter of the Fédou, had given me a doll. And that was the only toy I had during the war. And I always had that doll with me. And Madame Vala said, "Oh, you must be the one of the refugee girls in the village." And I said yes, and we're sort of hungry. And she said, "Fine, I'll give you some food." She gave me some bread, she gave me some cheese, she gave me a cauliflower. I said, "What's that?" She said, "Oh, your mother will know what to do with it." And on her windowsill, I could see she had a few bottles of wine, because the French in that part of France have little vineyards. And I must have overheard my father say to my mother on a Friday night, where in Jewish tradition you say a prayer over bread and wine, what I wouldn't give for a glass of wine. So here I am telling that lady, and my father likes wine. So she said, "Okay, you're very cute. I'll give you a bottle, but be very careful. We made this before the war. If you trip and it breaks, that would be awful." Oh, she said. I said, "Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. And here's my doll in exchange for all the food you gave me." She said, No. Put your doll on top of the wine. This way, nobody will even see that you're carrying it home." So when I arrived home, my mother was horrified. She said, "Where did you get this? I don't care how hungry we are. You are not to steal." I didn't steal it. This lady gave it to me. She said, "Fine. They need it as much as we do, so let's return it." And that's how my mother met Madame Vala, who assured her that she had given it to me and said, "If my husband and I can ever do anything for you, please let us know." And 2 weeks after that episode, 2 policemen came to the door. To give you an idea of my size, I was at eye level with the buckle of their belt. And of course, they didn't ring the doorbell. They just barged in. My mother had literally just stepped out. I was with a babysitter who they pushed away and addressed me and said, "Where's your father?" Of course, I was so conditioned that I said, "My father, I haven't seen him in 1,000 years, and you're not going to find him." They took me to the window and they said, "Last time you saw him, which way did he go?" I have no idea what made me do it, and I pointed in 2 different directions. Well, by then I was hysterical, and I could hear one policeman say to the other, "Shall we take her?" Because they took children as hostages, I found out, knowing that the parents would follow, because they were French. And the other one, I could tell, didn't have his heart in it. And he said to his partner or whatever, "Let's wait and see what the rest of the day will bring." And they left. I found out 20 or 30 years later that this other policeman had a little girl, my age, with dark curly hair, and didn't have the heart to arrest me. In fact, I found out that he actually committed suicide after the war.
Once it became too dangerous for the Kapps to stay in the apartment below the Fédou family, they had to move to another location. Monsieur and Madame Vala were part of the resistance and lived nearby. They had a secret cellar where the Kapps were able to hide.
We realized we couldn't live there one more minute. They could come back any minute. My father had been warned. He worked at the local factory making knives, making steel implements. And she remembered that the lady who had given me food, they had a basement. The Fédous did not. So she walked over, here we were total strangers to these people, and said, "They came to arrest my husband. Could we spend the night with you?" They immediately said yes. And of course, the days turned into weeks, that turned into months, because things became more and more dangerous. They actually built a wall parallel to their own wall so that it wouldn't look like anyone lived there. And I've met many hidden children, but every story is unique and different. But what we have in common is that we had to live in very dark spaces, very narrow, could hardly crouch down, and in total silence. Well, when you're 6 years old, it's very hard to keep quiet.
myself each day. I can't even go to school. Why does it have to be this way?
Danger kept growing for Jews as the French police, known as the milice, tried to fill their quotas. Renee's parents decided to send her to a Catholic orphanage for her protection. A French-Jewish woman, Madame Kahn, and her 2 children arrived in a car provided by the resistance.
I saw my mother pack the few things that I had. She said, "Where am I going?" She said, "Oh, this lady will pick you up. You've been down here and you're so pale. I want you to get some fresh air. And then she'll bring you back." So this lady drives up into a car. Never saw a car in the village during the war. People had either rickety bicycles or people walked. And she was there with her 2 children, Emmy and Jean-Claude. Emmy was a girl, Jean-Claude was a boy. She said, "Hop in." She drove and drove and drove and arrived at this big foreboding building, high windows, high stone walls. She left us across the street, and this lady dressed in black, black dress, black shoes, black veil. I remember thinking, this is absolutely the strangest lady I've ever seen. She was the Mother Superior of a convent, but I had no idea who she was. Madame Kahn introduces her children. "This is my daughter Emmy. This is my son Jean-Claude." They were on this side. She turns to me and says, "This is my other daughter, Renee." Of course, I wasn't forewarned. I said, "Oh my God, what happened to my parents? She's not my mother." But I was sworn to silence, so I didn't say anything. So she was very kind, and she took us inside, introduced us to the nuns who would take care of us. And we could see soldiers milling about who would talk to the children, but they never addressed me in any way. Until one day, Mother Superior came running to the cafeteria and gathered 7 of us. And she said, "Suivez-moi," which means follow me. She took us to the chapel where there was a trap door, and she said, "Descendez," meaning go down there. And we could hear 2 male voices, one man speaking German, one man speaking French. "We understand that you're hiding Jewish children." She said, "Me hide Jewish children? Why would I do such a dangerous thing?" Had they had dogs, they would have found us, but they didn't. And she left us down there overnight. And then she came over and let us out and took us, said, "Go back to your dorm."
After many months at the convent, Renee was reunited with her parents in Arthez. They hid in the apartment below the Feydeau until all danger had passed. Finally, the radio signaled that the war had ended and everyone celebrated. The Kapps stayed in Arthez until 1946 and then moved back to Paris. In 1958, Ruth emigrated to the United States and married Harry Hartz.
In 1969, Ruth returned to Arthez to visit the Feydeau family. She has visited many times over the years and gotten to know their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. In 2019, she visited again with David and Jenny, and we recorded these interviews.
Francine and Jo are the daughters of Lucette and the granddaughters of the Feydeaus. They were born after World War II.
Quand j'avais 15 ans, je pense, j'ai vu arriver une grosse voiture Mercedes, ce qui était très peu courant chez nous. Et j'ai dit, c'est des touristes qui se sont trompés de maison. Ils sont arrivés chez ma maman, ils ont frappé à la porte et je suis allée ouvrir. Elle me dit, Madame Feydeau habite ici? Oui. Et puis ma grand-mère est arrivée. Et là, je les ai vues toutes les deux pleurer. Et moi, je disais, mais comment ça se fait qu'elle pleure? Je ne comprenais pas pourquoi. Parce que
C'était en 1969. C'est la première fois que je suis retournée dans le village.
Lucette was the daughter of Monsieur and Madame Feydeau. She and her sister often took care of Ruth during their time in Arthez.
Dansons la Capucine. Ah oui. Ça, je l'ai chanté avec toi. Dansons la Capucine, y a pas de pain chez nous. Y en a chez la voisine, mais ce n'est pas pour vous. You! And this is around, we would go around and around, hopscotching, you know. And it was called Dansons la Capucine, which was a dance. There's no bread at our house. There's bread at the neighbor's house. Il y en a chez la voisine, mais ce n'est pas pour nous, but it's not for us. That could be a war song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I assume people kind of knew within the small community who they could trust. You know, like if you were part of the
After a while.
right. I mean,
Because you
who
could
to
always
tell.
have a traitor in the mix.
Right. But in general, like they, you know, they
Donc,
were.
tu penses, ou vous pensez que les gens savaient à qui ils pouvaient faire confiance et à qui ils ne pouvaient pas faire confiance.
général.
En général, je pense
j'ai
que dans les
répondu,
villages...
c'est comme il y avait peut-être des traîtres parmi ces...
People were silent during the war because they did not know whom to trust. They were silent after the war because they did not want to revisit the sad memories. The government was afraid that if people talked about it, there would be a civil war between the collaborators and the resistors.
Je pense qu'après la guerre, c'est vrai que c'est pas que pour mes grands-parents, mais il y a eu toute une période, jusqu'à ma génération, de choses des non-dits, parce que les gens avaient souffert, et il y avait eu tellement de gens qui avaient collaboré, je pense, dans les villages, que pour apaiser les tensions, les gens de n'importe quelle opinion politique, à l'école, on ne nous parlait pas, moi je suis d'après-guerre, on ne nous parlait pas de cette période-là, ou très peu, on parlait des combats des résistants, mais très peu, on n'a jamais...
Emily is the daughter of Francine, granddaughter of Lucette, and great-granddaughter of the Feydeaux.
Alors la question était, voyez-vous des similitudes entre ce qui se passe aujourd'hui en France et dans le monde avec ce qui se passait donc pendant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, avant et après?
Alors, Inès se posait des questions vis-à-vis de toi et on a connu les attentats. Et donc, chez nous, c'est différent de ce qui se passait à l'époque. Mais pour nous, c'est pareil, quoi. C'est pas des rafles, c'est pas... l'organisation n'est pas la même. Mais avec les outils de maintenant, si on n'est pas plus vigilant, ça peut aller très très vite.
You understand that?
I think so. Mm.
She said, yes, we witness attacks and killings, you know, of Jews. C'est dans mon état, en Pennsylvanie, on a tué 11 personnes dans une synagogue à Pittsburgh.
Ouais. Et aussi les réfugiés, les musulmans.
Les musulmans, il y a Nice, il y a, tout le monde peut être touché.
Laurent is the son of Joe, grandson of Lucette, and great-grandson of the Feydeaux. He spent a lot of time with his great-grandmother and later served in the Iraq War. He served in the French Army for 10 years and is now president of the Young Veterans. He regularly attends ceremonies that include Holocaust and resistance events.
C'est Madame Feydeau, là.
Oui, moi c'est elle qui m'a
Donc elle
élevé
t'a
beaucoup.
influencé.
Oui, peut-être.
His great-grandmother raised him. And he thinks it definitely did influence him in the sense that you have to be polite.
Je pense que moi c'était mon éducation d'être, d'aider, voilà, être juste, aider les gens, protéger.
Helping people, being just, protect people. You have to teach them
not to repeat the past.
Et c'est ce que je fais moi avec l'ONAC, avec les anciens combattants. On va dans les écoles pour leur dire voilà ce qui s'est passé. On peut changer l'histoire, mais il ne faut pas l'oublier.
Ce qu'il a fait, c'est normal. Et il n'a pas du tout... c'était un humaniste. Il a pensé qu'il faisait son devoir. C'est tout.
I'm not a hero, don't call me a hero. When someone needs help, you help them. I'm not a hero, don't call me a hero. When someone needs help, you help them. It's just what you do.
We feel that it's important to share Ruth's story because a lot of people aren't familiar with that aspect of what happened during World War II, the idea that people were hidden in France by families to escape from the Nazis or from the collaborators within the French government.
Especially we wanted to focus on the role of the rescuers because they believed so strongly that even though it put their lives in danger, it was the right thing to do. When people are in trouble, you have to help them. And when we met the descendants and one of the original rescuers in France, it was very clear to us that they were very kind and generous and giving people.
And we feel this is a very important story to tell at this time when we're seeing a rise of fascism in our country and around the world, moves towards more authoritarian forms of government, towards racism and xenophobia.
And anti-Semitism.
Anti-Muslim feeling, anti-LGBTQ, many, many different current struggles that really resonate with what Ruth and her family went through.
And we're going to be making a musical from this story because we feel that while telling it in video form, in a book, in other ways are very meaningful, that musical theater can be an extremely powerful way of conveying this story, bringing out the emotions of the story, and it can transform and bring light to new audiences. Sometimes I cry deep inside. I know who I am inside. Deep down I know it. But I have to hide who I am. Keep it inside who I am. It's not safe to show it. True self, keep it up high on a shelf. I know it's forbidden, and although it's a shame, I can't even go by my name. For now I must remain stand to live with this fear. It's hard not to give in to fear, and it's not safe to show it. I want to shout out the truth, not let lies crowd out the truth. I want the world to know it.